That's all right, because I got a question for you because you brought up a good point. You talked about having to get back into that pool of, what's available out there and events. And this is another point that we wanted to talk about. The mindset has shifted, just of the typical worker and what it is they expect, want, need out of the entity that they work for, no matter what the size, big or small. So and obviously in the economy that we're in right now, the worker is king because there are more jobs that are available than uh, people to fulfill them, so that they can really demand kind of what it is that they want or need. So, Vince, from that standpoint, as a company, and then even from an educational standpoint, what can we start to do to help uh, companies position themselves better so that they are competitive to attract people to come in and want to go to work for them? Because a lot of that is culturally based too, as to why I want to go work for this company or why I want to be in this particular industry. There are, I think, a lot of things that we can need to look at and start to do to start to position those types of industries and companies in a little bit better light so that they can get the talent that they need to continue to grow and flourish.
It's interesting. When I went to B school, one of the books or kind of required reading was Jim Collins' Good to Great, and it was looking at why some companies, Fortune. I think they took the data of like the Fortune 1000 companies, and the data showed that only 10% made it past 10 years. And so you think about some of these major corporations that we had growing up in my parents, and then obviously your and my generation too. Most of those companies are no longer around, most. And then you think of this evolution through the dot-com bubble, which huge, tremendous growth. And then you see this rise and fall where, a lot of folks literally bet the bank on these companies to make it big. And some made tremendous amounts of money, but most didn't. And then you think about this evolution around what's kind of coined conscious capitalism. So the idea is there's this new evolution of the consumer, and we dictate where we spend our dollars when we're looking at side by side products or services. What are some of the key points and key components within why we decide to pick one over the other? And that's that piece in my mind and many other researchers' minds where thinking about, you know, I want to support an organization that values its employees. I want to support an organization that allows for uh, gender and LGBTQ plus and BIPOC and then beyond that too. I want to support organizations that are looking at supporting the environment, doing kind of sustainable practices. So to me, when we think about education, when we think about capitalism, when we think about this whole thing, at the end of the day, it's really this kind of reaffirming values conversation for the leadership of every single organization, especially those that are publicly run. It's no longer purely driven based on profits. Yes, profits have to be the core because when you think about industry, when you think about like financial sustainability, that trumps everything. But then you also have to factor in what are the decisions we make in terms of our supply chain and how our supply chain has to ensure that we're not employing child labor and we're doing things that are, good for the environment. And we're really kind of looking at this longer holistic life cycle. And it's interesting too when we bring it back to home where, the three of us are living now and we look at how native cultures, so we think about whether it's the Native Hawaiians or the Native Americans, et cetera, and how the mentality and the culture and the values are driven around multi-generational decision making. And it's not just through time, but also looking at, let's just say, the commons as another key stakeholder in this, our natural resources, and making decisions that are in the best interest of the commons. That adds this whole other perspective, which in my mind, really brings into the whole educational value side and the culture side and everything else too on a greater level. Because if we're not looking at the commons and we're looking at all the different components of how we live, where we live, why we do the things we do, you know, that's really, I think, that values component. Because I've seen so many organizations kind of try to evolve through this and then realize that they're not living their values. They're talking about it, they're idealizing it, but at the end of the day, when they make those very small decisions on, can you work from home? You know, do we value carpooling? Do we allow for this, that, and the other? I mean, it all adds up and feeds up to this thing, which is in essence where we are today, where we want to be tomorrow, and how we stay relevant.
100% agree with you on that, and that's a great point because, as you said, as you start your company, you have your organization, you have your values that you have there, and your company mission statement, and all those other things that traditionally you pull together. Uh, but the key component is, are you actually living and breathing those things day in, day out, and in your actions, your planning for what you want to do. And I think that's a key component to it, is that part of it. We say we are X, but we're acting like Q. You're totally not even in the same realm as to what you want to portray yourself to be. And that also, I think, is where a lot of the confusion comes from for us as employees. The workforce per se, is because we see this and we say, well, yeah, I do want to go be part of that culture. Once I'm inside, then I start to learn that the culture that I thought it was is not the culture that it is at all. And that's so then there becomes this disconnect of buy-in of and many other things that the worker, has for that entity. So then now you kind of have this thing where you are kind of conflicted, right? Because I need the job because I have a mortgage to pay and this and that and the other thing. But so it's feeding that side of what I need, but it's not feeding the other pieces of what I need as an employee too. And I think that's one area that gets overlooked quite a bit is like, and I want to say overlooked, I'm talking about it from the corporate level, the company level is what are the true needs of the employees, your workforce, other than the paycheck, getting outside of that box with the paycheck piece of it.